1941. Nazi Germany is strangling Britain with a campaign of unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic. Every month, hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo sink beneath the cold waters, taking supplies, weapons, and the hope of British victory down with them. The Germans believed they had found the answer to Allied industrial power. They would simply sink more cargo than the Allies could produce. They would starve Britain into submission. They would win the war through attrition. But they had not counted on one thing. They had not counted on a ship that was so cheap to build, so simple to construct, and so easy to replace that sinking them by the hundreds would actually accelerate Allied victory instead of slowing it down. The Germans mocked these ships. The Germans called them slow and worthless and claimed that sinking them was practically an insult to German naval capability. But by the time the war ended, 2,110 of these ships had delivered the materials necessary to defeat Nazi Germany. This is the story of how the Liberty ship, the most mass-produced ship in human history, and perhaps the most ignored vessel in World War II historical narratives, became the foundation upon which American industrial power was projected across the Atlantic and across the world. Let me be direct about something that most World War II documentaries get completely wrong about the logistics of the Allied victory. When historians talk about how the Allies won, they talk about tanks and aircraft and ships of war. They talk about D-Day and Midway and Normandy. They talk about generals and admirals and the strategic vision of Churchill and Roosevelt. But they almost never talk about what actually made those victories possible: the cargo ships that delivered the supplies, the cargo ships that delivered the ammunition, the cargo ships that delivered the fuel, the cargo ships that delivered the replacement parts, the cargo ships that delivered the soldiers. Without those cargo ships, without that constant flow of supplies, every tank and every aircraft and every warship would have been immobile and useless. The Germans understood this. The Germans knew that if they could sink enough cargo ships, they could strangle the Allies into submission. But the Germans had not anticipated the Liberty ship. The Germans had not anticipated that the Americans would build thousands of these ships, that they would build them so fast that replacing them would be faster than sinking them, that sinking Liberty ships would actually be counterproductive, because it would accelerate American shipbuilding and American industrial mobilization. Consider this specific moment. In 1941, Britain was under siege. British industrial capacity was consumed with building weapons. British shipyards were consumed with building warships. Britain did not have the capacity to build cargo ships. Britain needed cargo ships to carry supplies from America. America had the industrial capacity to build cargo ships, but American shipyards were already backlogged with contracts. The Americans needed a revolutionary approach to shipbuilding. They needed a design that could be built quickly and cheaply. They needed a ship that was reliable enough to carry cargo across the Atlantic, but simple enough that unskilled workers could build it. In 1940, a British engineer named J. Curry had designed a prototype cargo ship that was simple and straightforward. The American Maritime Commission took that design and simplified it further. They removed unnecessary features. They eliminated complex systems. They created a design that was so simple that it could be built in sections and bolted together on an assembly line. That ship was called the Liberty ship, and the Liberty ship would change the entire character of the war. What the American industrial engineers discovered when they analyzed the Liberty ship design was absolutely revolutionary. A Liberty ship could be built in an average of 42 days. Some shipyards got that down to 14 days. A Liberty ship cost approximately $2 million to build, which was approximately 60% cheaper than conventional cargo ships. A Liberty ship carried 10,800 tons of cargo. A Liberty ship had a range of approximately 17,000 nautical miles, which meant it could cross the Atlantic loaded and return without refueling. The Liberty ship was not a sophisticated ship. The Liberty ship was not a fast ship. The Liberty ship did not have advanced features. But the Liberty ship was exactly what the Allies needed. The Liberty ship was a ship that could be mass-produced. The Liberty ship was a ship that could be replaced quickly if sunk. The Liberty ship was a ship that was strategically important, not because it was superior to other ships, but because there were so many of them. Here's what military historians discovered when they analyzed the German submarine campaign against Allied shipping in the Atlantic. The Germans sank approximately 2,128 merchant ships during the entire war. Of those, approximately 1,800 were sunk in the Atlantic. The tonnage sunk was enormous, approximately 15 million tons of cargo and ships combined. The Germans believed that at that rate of sinking, They could strangle Britain and prevent American supplies from reaching Europe. The Germans calculated that if they could sink more than 700,000 tons of shipping per month, the Allies would not be able to replace the losses. The Allies would be starved into submission. But the Germans had not anticipated Liberty ships. The Germans had not anticipated that the Americans would build cargo ships faster than German submarines could sink them. By mid-1943, the Americans were building more cargo ships than the Germans were sinking. By 1944, the Americans were building cargo ships at a rate that was completely overwhelming. The Germans could not keep up. For every Liberty ship the Germans sank, the Americans built 10 more. The numbers tell a story about the scale of American industrial mobilization. Between 1941 and 1945, American shipyards built approximately 2,110 Liberty ships. 2,710. That number is almost impossible to comprehend. That number represented approximately 1/2 of all merchant ships built in America during the war. That number represented the most mass-produced ship design in human history. No other ship design has ever been built in such quantities. The Henry Kaiser shipyards, which became famous for building Liberty ships, produced approximately 500 Liberty ships during the war. That was 50% of all Liberty ships built. Henry Kaiser revolutionized shipbuilding by implementing assembly line techniques on a scale that had never been attempted before. Kaiser's shipyards could build a Liberty ship every 14 days. At one point, Kaiser's shipyards had over 15,000 workers employed in shipbuilding. The scale of this mobilization was unprecedented. The scope of this effort was revolutionary. What the declassified German intelligence reports revealed about their assessment of American industrial capacity was absolutely fascinating. The German military attachés who were posted in America before the war had sent reports back to Berlin about American industrial capacity. Those reports were often dismissed by Hitler as exaggeration. Hitler believed that American industry was inefficient. Hitler believed that American workers were undisciplined. Hitler believed that American management was chaotic. Hitler believed that America would never be able to mobilize industrial capacity the way Germany had. But Hitler was completely wrong. When the war began, American industry mobilized at a scale that completely overwhelmed German capability. The Americans built not just more cargo ships, but more tanks, more aircraft, more ammunition, more weapons of every type than Germany could possibly compete with. The Liberty ship was the symbol of that American industrial mobilization. The Liberty ship was the symbol of America's ability to produce material faster than Germany could destroy it. Most people don't realize that the Liberty ship was constantly criticized as a slow ship by both military professionals and the media. The Liberty ship had a maximum speed of approximately 11 knots, which was slower than many other cargo ships. The Liberty ship had a reputation for being unreliable, with structural problems that led to several ships breaking in half under heavy seas. But what those critics failed to understand was that speed was not the critical variable in Atlantic cargo transport during World War II. The critical variable was cargo delivered. A slow ship that delivered its cargo safely was more valuable than a fast ship that was sunk before it reached its destination. The Liberty ship, despite its limitations, had a higher delivery rate than faster ships because Liberty ships were so numerous that even if some were sunk, enough would get through to make a difference. The logic was simple. Build enough Liberty ships to account for a certain percentage loss to submarine attack, and the total cargo delivered would exceed the total cargo delivered by fewer, faster ships that faced the same attrition rate. Consider the specific statistics about Liberty ship survival rates. Approximately 200 Liberty ships were sunk during the entire war. That was approximately 7% of all Liberty ships built. Approximately 93% of all Liberty ships successfully completed their voyages without being sunk. That survival rate was actually comparable to the survival rate of other merchant ships. The difference was that there were so many Liberty ships that the absolute numbers of ships sunk was large, but the percentage of the total fleet that was lost was manageable. Compare that to the German merchant fleet. The Germans started the war with approximately 3 million tons of merchant shipping. By the end of the war, the Germans had approximately 600,000 tons of merchant shipping. The Germans had lost approximately 80% of their merchant fleet. The Germans could not replace their losses. The Americans could. That difference in replacement capability was absolutely critical to the outcome of the war. What the American shipyard workers discovered when they began building Liberty ships is worth reflecting on. The Liberty ship was so simple to build that workers who had never built ships before could be trained to build them in a matter of weeks. The shipyards hired women, minorities, and workers who had no previous industrial experience. Those workers built the Liberty ships. Those workers became skilled shipbuilders through the process of building Liberty ships. By the end of the war, American shipyards had trained hundreds of thousands of workers in shipbuilding skills. The American shipbuilding industry emerged from the war as one of the most sophisticated and most capable industries in the world. The Liberty ship was the foundation of that industrial transformation. Here's what military strategists discovered when they analyzed the relationship between cargo delivered and military victory. The Allies needed to deliver certain minimum quantities of supplies per month to maintain military operations. The Allies needed fuel for vehicles and aircraft. The Allies needed ammunition for weapons. The Allies needed food for soldiers. The Allies needed replacement parts for equipment. The Allies needed construction materials for bases and fortifications. The minimum quantity of cargo that needed to be delivered to support military operations was approximately 4 million tons per month by 1944. That was an enormous quantity. That was equivalent to approximately 370 Liberty ships completely loaded and arriving safely every single month. The Germans were sinking perhaps 10,000 to 20,000 tons of shipping per month by 1944, which was approximately 2 to 4 Liberty ships per month. The Germans were unable to even slow down the flow of supplies significantly. The evidence suggests that the entire German strategy of starving Britain into submission was fundamentally flawed. The Germans had calculated that British morale would collapse if supplies ran short. The Germans had calculated that American supplies would not be sufficient to make up for the loss of British industrial capacity. But the Germans had underestimated American industrial capacity by an order of magnitude. The Germans had underestimated the speed at which American industry could mobilize. The Germans had underestimated the effectiveness of the Liberty ship as a tool of war. By the time German strategists realized their mistake, it was far too late. The Liberty ships were being built by the hundreds. The Liberty ships were delivering cargo faster than submarines could destroy them. The German strategy had failed completely. What most people don't understand about supply logistics is that it's not just about quantity, but about reliability and speed of replacement. A military force can operate with insufficient supplies for a period of time if it knows that supplies are coming. A military force will panic and break down if supplies are cut off completely. The Liberty ship ensured that supplies were never completely cut off. The Liberty ship ensured that there was a constant flow of supplies. The Liberty ship ensured that losses could be absorbed and replaced. That reliability was more important than the quantity of supplies delivered at any single moment. Consider the implications of German U-boat tactics becoming increasingly ineffective as the war progressed. Early in the war, German U-boats operated in packs called wolf packs that would attack convoys. Those tactics were effective at first. But as the Allies developed better convoy escort procedures, better anti-submarine weapons, and better detection technology, the U-boats became less effective. By 1944, a German U-boat was more likely to be sunk than to sink a cargo ship. By the end of the war, German U-boats were obsolete. But the fundamental problem was that even when the U-boats were effective, they could only sink a limited number of ships per month. The Germans could not sink Liberty ships fast enough to matter. The Germans could not slow down the flow of supplies. The Germans could not achieve their strategic objective of starving Britain into submission. What the declassified German naval records revealed about their assessment of the Liberty ship program is absolutely fascinating. The German Naval High Command recognized that the Liberty ship represented a problem. The German Naval High Command realized that American shipbuilding capacity was overwhelming. The German Naval High Command recognized that sinking Liberty ships was not achieving the strategic objective of cutting off American supplies to Britain. But by the time the Germans recognized this, it was too late to change strategy. The U-boat program was fully mobilized. The entire German Navy was committed to the submarine campaign. There was no way to stop the U-boat offensive without admitting that the strategy had failed. So the Germans continued the campaign even though they knew it was failing. The Germans continued to sink Liberty ships even though those sinkings were not slowing down the flow of supplies. The Germans continued the campaign right up until the end of the war. Here's what the military analysis of the Battle of the Atlantic reveals about the critical importance of cargo delivered. The Battle of the Atlantic was fought from 1940 until 1945. The battle was fought by German U-boats against Allied merchant ships and Allied naval escorts. The battle was not won by destroying all German U-boats. The battle was not won by achieving some particular tactical victory. The battle was won because American industry built cargo ships faster than German U-boats could sink them. The battle was won because the flow of supplies to Britain became uninterruptible. The battle was won because the Liberty ship made it possible to absorb losses and continue operations. The battle was won by industrial capacity and mass production. Most people don't realize that the Liberty ship was not the only factor in winning the Battle of the Atlantic. The Allies developed better anti-submarine technology. The Allies developed better tactics for convoy escort. The Allies developed long-range aircraft for anti-submarine patrol. The Allies developed radar that could detect U-boats on the surface at night. The Allies developed depth charges that were more effective. The Allies developed sonar that could detect submerged U-boats. All of those factors contributed to reducing the effectiveness of German U-boats. But without the Liberty ship, all of those factors would have been insufficient. Without the Liberty ship, the Allies would have lost the Battle of the Atlantic because they would not have been able to replace losses fast enough. The Liberty ship was the foundation upon which all of those other factors could be effective. Consider the specific moment in mid-1943 when the Allies definitively won the Battle of the Atlantic. For the first time, the tonnage of cargo delivered exceeded the tonnage of cargo sunk. For the first time, the flow of supplies was increasing instead of decreasing. For the first time, the Allies could build cargo ships faster than the Germans could sink them. That moment marked the failure of the German strategy. That moment marked the beginning of the end for German hopes of achieving victory through attrition. That moment was made possible by the Liberty ship. That moment could not have been achieved without the Liberty ship. What the strategic implications of the Liberty ship victory reveals is worth reflecting on. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the invasion of North Africa. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the invasion of Sicily. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the invasion of Italy. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the invasion of Normandy. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the invasion of southern France. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic made possible the entire European campaign. Every American soldier who landed on a beach in Europe was supplied by Liberty ships. Every tank that rolled across France was supplied by Liberty ships. Every aircraft that flew over Germany was supplied by Liberty ships. The Liberty ship was not just a cargo vessel. The Liberty ship was the foundation of the entire American strategy in Europe. The contradiction that historians have often emphasized is this: the Liberty ship was slow. The Liberty ship was seen as crude and simple. The Liberty ship was criticized as a temporary expedient. But the Liberty ship turned out to be exactly what was needed to win the war. The Liberty ship turned out to be more strategically important than faster, more sophisticated ships. The Liberty ship turned out to be the most important ship design of the entire war. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Sometimes the mass-produced solution is more effective than the sophisticated solution. The Liberty ship embodied that truth. Here's what the economic analysis of Liberty ship production reveals about American industrial capacity. The total cost of building 2,110 Liberty ships was approximately $5.4 billion in 1941 dollars. That was approximately $100 billion in current dollars. That enormous investment in shipbuilding capacity transformed American industry. That investment created infrastructure that lasted for decades after the war. That investment created a generation of skilled workers in the shipbuilding industry. That investment paid for itself many times over in terms of the value of cargo delivered and the strategic advantage it provided. What the military strategists discovered when they analyzed the Liberty ship program was that it represented a new approach to warfare. The Liberty ship was not a weapon. The Liberty ship was not a warship. The Liberty ship was a cargo vessel. But in total war, logistics become a weapon. The ability to supply an army becomes a weapon. The ability to transport supplies faster than the enemy can destroy them becomes a weapon. The Liberty ship was a weapon of logistics. The Liberty ship was a weapon of industrial mobilization. The Liberty ship was a weapon of mass production. The Liberty ship won battles not by direct combat, but by ensuring that the combatants had the supplies they needed to fight. Most people don't realize that the Liberty Ship program continued after the war ended in Europe. After the surrender of Germany in May 1945, the Liberty Ship program continued building ships, because those ships were needed to supply the Pacific War against Japan. Over 500 Liberty ships were used to supply American military operations in the Pacific from June 1945 until the Japanese surrender in August 1945. The Liberty ship was so effective at cargo transport that the Allies continued using them even after the greatest threat from German submarines had been eliminated. The Liberty ship proved its value again and again in every possible operating environment. Consider the implications of the Liberty ship continuing to be used long after the war ended. After the war, Liberty ships were used for civilian commerce. Liberty ships were used to supply reconstruction efforts in Europe. Liberty ships were used to supply American military bases around the world. Many Liberty ships continued operating into the 1950s and 1960s. Some Liberty ships continue operating even today, more than 80 years after they were first built. The Liberty ship design proved so effective that it was copied by other nations. Soviet shipyards built Liberty ship-type vessels. British shipyards built Liberty ship-type vessels. The Liberty ship design became the foundation for modern cargo ship design. What the declassified American strategic planning documents revealed about the role of cargo ships in winning the war is absolutely critical. The American military leadership recognized that cargo ships were the foundation of military power. The American military leadership recognized that the ability to supply armies at a distance was the foundation of American strategy. The American military leadership recognized that the Liberty ship was essential to implementing that strategy. The American military leadership made the decision to prioritize cargo ship construction above many other types of construction. That decision was correct. That decision was strategically brilliant. That decision made the difference between victory and defeat. Here's what the statistical analysis of cargo delivered versus cargo lost reveals about the actual impact of the Liberty ship. During the entire war, American shipyards built approximately 5,500 merchant ships of all types. Approximately 49% of those were Liberty ships. American merchant ships delivered approximately 300 million tons of cargo during the war. Approximately 150 million tons of that cargo was delivered in Liberty ships. Without the Liberty ship, without that 150 million tons of cargo delivered, American military operations would have been severely constrained. The invasion of Normandy would have been impossible without the supplies delivered by Liberty ships. The liberation of Europe would have been impossible without the supplies delivered by Liberty ships. What most people don't understand is that every military campaign depends on a supply chain. Every military campaign depends on cargo ships delivering supplies. Every military campaign depends on the ability to sustain an army at a distance from its home base. The Liberty ship made it possible for America to sustain armies across vast distances. The Liberty ship made it possible for America to supply the entire war effort in Europe. The Liberty ship made it possible for America to project military power across the Atlantic. Without the Liberty ship, American military power would have been concentrated in North America. With the Liberty ship, American military power could be projected globally. Consider the specific moment when the first Liberty ship, the SS Patrick Henry, was launched in September 1941. That ship was completed in 244 days, which was the normal construction time at that point. But American shipyards quickly reduced that time to 120 days, then 90 days, then 60 days, and eventually down to 14 days. That progression in construction speed was revolutionary. That progression demonstrated the power of industrial engineering and assembly line techniques. That progression showed that American industry was capable of unprecedented feats of production. The Patrick Henry itself was sunk by a German U-boat in March 1942, but not before making multiple successful cargo runs to Britain. The Patrick Henry died doing exactly what it was built to do, carrying supplies to Britain to defeat Nazi Germany. What the technological innovation involved in Liberty ship production reveals is worth reflecting on. The Liberty ship used a welded hull instead of a riveted hull. Welded hulls were faster to build. Welded hulls were less labor-intensive. Welded hulls could be built with unskilled workers. But welded hulls had a problem. They were more prone to cracking, especially in cold water. Several Liberty ships cracked in half and sank, not from enemy attack but from structural failure. The most famous example was the SS John P. Gray, which cracked in half in the North Atlantic in February 1943. But even with this structural vulnerability, the Liberty ship was still strategically superior to the alternatives. Even with this structural vulnerability, the ability to build Liberty ships so quickly outweighed the losses to structural failure. Here's what the military analysis of the entire Atlantic shipping situation reveals about the strategic balance. Germany needed to sink more than 700,000 tons of shipping per month to prevent American supplies from reaching Britain and to supply American forces in Europe. At the peak of the German U-boat offensive in early 1943, the Germans were sinking approximately 600,000 tons of shipping per month. That was almost enough to achieve their strategic objective. But then the Allies destroyed increasing numbers of U-boats. Then the Allies developed better anti-submarine technology. Then the Americans built Liberty ships faster. By mid-1943, the Germans were sinking only about 300,000 tons of shipping per month. By 1944, the Germans were sinking only about 100,000 tons per month. The Germans had failed. The strategic objective was not achieved. The flow of supplies to Britain and to American forces in Europe was uninterruptible. The evidence suggests that American industrial capacity was absolutely critical to the outcome of World War II. Without American industrial capacity, Britain would have been starved into submission. Without American industrial capacity, the Soviet Union would have been unable to equip its armies. Without American industrial capacity, the Japanese would not have been defeated in the Pacific. American industrial capacity was the foundation of Allied victory. The Liberty ship was the symbol of that industrial capacity. The Liberty ship was the most visible manifestation of American industrial power. The Liberty ship was perhaps the most important wartime production program of the entire war. What most people don't realize is that the Liberty ship represented a completely new approach to naval architecture and shipbuilding. The Liberty ship was designed for mass production, not for individual craftsmanship. The Liberty ship was designed for easy repair and replacement of components. The Liberty ship was designed to be built in pieces and assembled. The Liberty ship was designed to be simple enough that unskilled workers could build it. All of those design considerations were revolutionary. All of those design considerations represented a new way of thinking about how to build ships. After the war, those design principles were applied to civilian ship construction. After the war, those design principles became the foundation of modern shipbuilding. Consider the specific engineering innovation of welding large steel sections together instead of riveting them. Before the Liberty ship, large ships were built by riveting steel plates together. Riveting was labor-intensive. Riveting required skilled workers. Riveting was slow. Welding was faster. Welding required less skill. Welding produced stronger joints in many cases. But welding also had problems. Welding could create weak points if not done correctly. Welding could create stress concentrations that led to cracking. But the advantages of welding outweighed the disadvantages for Liberty ship construction. The ability to build ships twice as fast was worth the occasional structural failure. The mathematical calculation was simple. If you can build twice as many ships, then occasional structural failures are acceptable as long as the total number of ships reaching their destination is greater than the previous situation. What the Liberty ship program revealed about mass production and quality control is worth reflecting on. The Liberty ship was built to specifications. The Liberty ship was inspected at various stages of construction. The Liberty ship was tested before being put into service. But the Liberty ship was not built to the same exacting standards as pre-war merchant ships. The Liberty ship was built to the highest standards that were compatible with mass production. That approach represented a new philosophy of manufacturing. That approach said, we need quantity more than we need perfection. We need to deliver more ships than the enemy can destroy. We need to accept occasional failures as long as the overall system works. That philosophy was revolutionary. That philosophy transformed manufacturing around the world. Here's what the military analysis of supply logistics in the Pacific War reveals about the importance of cargo ships. The Pacific War was fought across enormous distances. The Pacific War was fought in conditions of extreme supply difficulty. The Pacific War required transporting supplies across thousands of miles of open ocean. The Liberty ship was used extensively in the Pacific War. despite its design being intended primarily for Atlantic operations. Liberty ships were converted to transport troops. Liberty ships were converted to transport ammunition. Liberty ships were converted to transport fuel. Liberty ships were converted to transport aircraft. Liberty ships were used for almost every conceivable cargo transport mission in the Pacific. The flexibility of the Liberty ship design made it the ideal cargo vessel for the complex demands of World War II. Most people don't realize that the Liberty ship program involved innovation in labor, organization, and manufacturing process. Henry Kaiser introduced assembly line manufacturing to shipbuilding. Workers were stationed at specific locations along the assembly line. Ships moved through the assembly line. Each worker performed a specific task. That approach was revolutionary in shipbuilding. That approach had been used in automobile manufacturing, but never on the scale of shipbuilding. The results were spectacular. Production speeds increased from months to weeks to days. The quality of the finished product remained acceptable. The cost per unit decreased dramatically. The Liberty ship program demonstrated that assembly line manufacturing could be applied to almost any type of production. What the impact of the Liberty ship on post-war merchant shipping reveals is worth reflecting on. After the war, the Liberty ship remained the most common ship type in the world for many years. Used Liberty ships were sold to civilian shipping companies. Used Liberty ships were converted to new purposes. Used Liberty ships were modified and improved. The Liberty ship design influenced the design of every cargo ship built for decades after the war. The Liberty ship demonstrated that simple, mass-produced design could be more effective than complex, sophisticated design. That lesson transformed manufacturing and production around the world. Consider the specific role of Liberty ships in the Berlin airlift of 1948-1949. When the Soviet Union blockaded Berlin, the Allies had to supply the city entirely by air. That required unprecedented airlift operations. It also required that those aircraft be supplied with fuel and supplies delivered by ship. Liberty ships played a critical role in that effort. Liberty ships delivered cargo to European ports. That cargo was then transported by rail and truck to airfields, where it was loaded into transport aircraft. The Liberty ship, designed during the war to supply military operations, was still doing exactly that years after the war had ended. What the statistics about Liberty ship survival in merchant service reveal is fascinating. Approximately 2,010 Liberty ships were built. Of those, approximately 200 were sunk during the war. Approximately 2,510 Liberty ships survived the war. Many of those ships were sold to civilian shipping companies after the war. Many of those ships operated in civilian service for decades. Some Liberty ships operated into the 1960s and 1970s. Some Liberty ships were not scrapped until the 1990s. The oldest Liberty ship still afloat today is over 80 years old. No other class of ship has remained operational for such a long time. The durability of the Liberty ship design proved to be one of its greatest virtues. Here's what the economic impact of the Liberty ship program reveals about American industrial mobilization. The Liberty ship program employed hundreds of thousands of workers. The Liberty ship program created new shipbuilding facilities. The Liberty ship program created infrastructure that lasted for decades. The Liberty ship program demonstrated that American industry could mobilize at unprecedented scale and speed. The Liberty ship program demonstrated that American workers were capable of extraordinary productivity. The Liberty ship program became the model for all subsequent American military production programs. What most people don't understand is that the Liberty ship was politically important as well as militarily important. The Liberty ship demonstrated that America could defeat Nazi Germany without massive casualties in a land war. The Liberty ship demonstrated that American industrial power was the foundation of military victory. The Liberty ship demonstrated that the American way of doing business, with mass production and assembly line techniques, was superior to more traditional approaches. The Liberty ship became a symbol of American confidence and American capability. The Liberty ship became a symbol of American industrial might. Most historians fail to appreciate the full strategic significance of the Liberty ship program. The Liberty ship was not a weapon. The Liberty ship did not fight battles. The Liberty ship did not sink enemy warships. But the Liberty ship made victory possible. The Liberty ship made it possible to sustain armies at a distance. The Liberty ship made it possible to supply the entire war effort in Europe and the Pacific. The Liberty ship made it possible to overwhelm German forces with material and supplies. The Liberty ship was, in a very real sense, more important to the outcome of the war than any individual weapon system. Consider the implications of Germany completely misunderstanding the significance of the Liberty ship. The Germans mocked the Liberty ship as slow and crude and simple. The Germans believed that sinking Liberty ships was practically pointless because they were not military vessels. But the Germans failed to understand that the Liberty ship was strategically critical precisely because it was so numerous. The Germans failed to understand that the point of the Liberty ship was not to be superior to other ships, but to be numerous enough that losses could be absorbed. The Germans failed to understand that the Liberty ship represented a new approach to warfare, where industrial production was as important as individual combat capability. That failure of understanding cost Germany the war. What the legacy of the Liberty ship reveals is that mass production and industrial mobilization are often more important to military success than advanced technology or sophisticated tactics. The Liberty ship won the Battle of the Atlantic not through superior speed or superior armor or superior weaponry. The Liberty ship won the Battle of the Atlantic through overwhelming numbers and easy replaceability. The Liberty ship taught a lesson that remains relevant today. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Sometimes quantity is more important than quality. Sometimes the ability to replace losses is more important than the ability to prevent losses. Here's what the final calculation about Liberty ships reveals about their strategic impact. Approximately 200 Liberty ships were sunk during the war. Approximately 2,510 Liberty ships survived the war and continued to operate. Of the 2,510 that survived, those ships delivered approximately 150 million tons of cargo during the war, plus millions of additional tons in the years after the war. Each Liberty ship sunk was replaced within days or weeks because new Liberty ships were constantly coming off the assembly line. Each Liberty ship sunk was actually an economic advantage for the Allies because it meant new resources were allocated to build replacement ships, which accelerated American industrial mobilization. Sinking Liberty ships was completely counterproductive from a German strategic perspective. Sinking Liberty ships actually accelerated Allied victory instead of slowing it down. The contradiction that historians have emphasized is this: the Liberty ship was considered a temporary, crude expedient. The Liberty ship was not supposed to be anything more than an emergency measure to deal with immediate cargo shortage. But the Liberty ship turned out to be exactly what was needed to win the war. The Liberty ship turned out to be more strategically important than battleships or aircraft carriers. The Liberty ship turned out to be the foundation of American victory in Europe. Sometimes the solution to a problem is not more sophisticated or more advanced technology, but simpler, more mass-producible solutions. Sometimes solving a problem through quantity and mass production is more effective than solving a problem through individual excellence or sophistication. What the Germans failed to understand about American industrial capacity ultimately cost them the war. The Germans believed that American industry was chaotic and inefficient. The Germans believed that American workers were lazy. The Germans believed that American management was unsophisticated. The Germans believed that America would not be able to mobilize for sustained industrial production the way Germany had. But the Germans were completely wrong on all counts. American industry mobilized at an unprecedented scale and speed. American workers were extraordinarily productive. American management was sophisticated and effective. American industry produced more cargo ships, more tanks, more aircraft, more ammunition than Germany could possibly compete with. The Liberty ship was the symbol of that American industrial power. The Liberty ship was the symbol of American victory. Most people don't realize that without the Liberty ship, American military strategy in World War II would have been completely different. Without the Liberty ship, America would not have been able to supply Britain. Without the Liberty ship, America would not have been able to launch the invasion of North Africa. Without the Liberty ship, America would not have been able to invade Sicily and Italy. Without the Liberty ship, America would not have been able to launch the invasion of Normandy. Without the Liberty ship, America would not have been able to project military power across the Atlantic. The entire course of World War II was shaped by the existence of the Liberty ship. The entire outcome of the war was dependent on the ability to mass-produce cargo ships. The Liberty ship made that mass production possible. The Liberty ship made American victory possible. What the final assessment of the Liberty ship program reveals is that it was one of the most strategically important production programs of the entire war. The Liberty ship program produced more tonnage of shipping than any other Allied shipbuilding effort. The Liberty ship program created the foundation for the entire American war effort in Europe. The Liberty ship program demonstrated that American industrial capacity was the foundation of American military power. The Liberty ship program demonstrated that mass production and industrial engineering could solve problems that seemed insolvable through traditional military approaches. The Liberty ship program was the foundation upon which American victory in World War II was built. The 2007-10 Liberty ships that were built delivered that victory across the Atlantic, across the world, and ultimately to complete victory over Nazi Germany,